Marcus stood in the freezing parking lot at 11:47 p.m., watching his boss stumble toward her Mercedes, keys jangling in her unsteady hand. Snow was falling hard now, the kind that turned Chicago streets into skating rinks within minutes. Jennifer Matthews, CEO of Matthews and Associates, was in no condition to drive. She'd been drinking since the office holiday party started at 6, and Marcus had watched her down glass after glass of champagne while networking with clients who didn't care that she was slowly losing control. He should have left hours ago. His daughter Emma was home alone, probably already asleep on the couch waiting for him. The heat in their apartment barely worked, and he'd promised to bring home leftovers from the party. But watching Jennifer fumble with her car door, makeup smeared and designer heels slipping on the ice, Marcus knew he couldn't just walk away. Not when she'd given him this job when nobody else would hire a single father with a criminal record he didn't deserve. "Ms. Matthews," he called out, jogging toward her, "let me drive you home, please." She turned, squinting at him through the snow. For a moment, her expression was blank, like she didn't recognize the man who'd worked as her personal assistant for 3 years. Then something shifted in her eyes. "Marcus," she slurred. Sweet, dependable Marcus, always cleaning up everyone's messes. He took the keys gently from her hand. She didn't resist. "Before we continue this incredible story that will touch your heart in ways you never expected, subscribe and hit that like button. We know you've been watching our videos, and we don't want you to miss what happens next in this unbelievable true story. Subscribe now so you'll be notified when we drop our next video. And drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from you." The drive to Jennifer's house in Evanston took 40 minutes through the blizzard. She lived in one of those massive homes on the lake, the kind Marcus had only seen in magazines. White columns, perfectly manicured lawn now buried under snow, 3-car garage. Meanwhile, Marcus and Emma shared a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat where the pipes froze every winter. Jennifer had passed out in the passenger seat within 5 minutes, her head lolling against the window. Marcus kept glancing over, making sure she was still breathing. He'd seen her drunk before at company events, but never like this. Never this vulnerable, this broken-looking. When they pulled into her circular driveway, Marcus gently shook her shoulder. "Ms. Matthews, we're here." She stirred, blinking slowly. "Home," she whispered. Then she looked at him with sudden clarity. "I can't go in there, Marcus. I can't face that empty house tonight." Marcus hesitated. "Your husband left me 6 months ago," she interrupted, voice cracking. "Took our son to California. Didn't you wonder why I've been working 16-hour days? Why I'm at the office every weekend?" She laughed bitterly. "The great Jennifer Matthews built a company worth $50 million, but couldn't keep her family together." Marcus sat quietly, unsure what to say. He'd noticed the wedding ring had disappeared from her finger around summer, but office gossip had blamed it on weight loss. Nobody knew the truth. "Come inside," Jennifer said suddenly. "Just for a few minutes. I'll pay you overtime. I can't be alone right now. Please." Every instinct told Marcos this was a bad idea. Going into his boss's house late at night, with her intoxicated and emotional. But the desperation in her voice reminded him of himself 3 years ago, when Emma's mother had left them and he'd been arrested for a crime his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend had committed. Jennifer had looked past his record, had given him a chance when everyone else saw only a liability. "All right," he agreed. "Just until you're settled." The house was even more impressive inside. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than Marcus made in a year. But it felt cold, empty. No toys scattered around, no family photos on the walls anymore. Just expensive furniture in rooms that echoed with loneliness. Jennifer collapsed onto a white leather couch, kicking off her heels. "Get me some water, would you? Kitchen's that way." Marcus found the kitchen, all stainless steel and granite countertops, and filled a glass. When he returned, Jennifer was crying silently, mascara running down her cheeks. "I had everything," she whispered. "Everything, and I destroyed it. Working 80 hours a week, missing Dylan's soccer games, forgetting anniversaries. Robert begged me to slow down. He said the company was taking over my life. But I didn't listen, and now my son doesn't even call me back." Marcus handed her the water and sat carefully on the opposite end of the couch. How old is Dylan? 13. The age when boys need their mothers most. And I'm 2,000 miles away. She drank deeply, then set the glass down with shaking hands. Do you know what he said the last time we talked? He said he was happier in California, that his dad actually has time for him now. I'm sorry, Marcus said quietly. He thought of Emma, only 8 years old, waiting for him at home. He never missed her school plays, never forgot to help with homework, even when he was exhausted from working 2 jobs. Being present was all he had to give her. You're a good father, Jennifer said, as if reading his thoughts. I've seen you with Emma when you bring her to the office. The way she looks at you, like you hung the moon. That's real wealth, Marcus. That's the only thing that actually matters. They sat in silence for a while, the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking loudly. Finally, Jennifer stood up, steadier now. I'm going to bed. Thank you for being here, for not judging me. Everyone struggles, Marcus said. Rich or poor, we're all just trying to make it through. He stood to leave, but Jennifer touched his arm. Wait, let me give you something for the trouble, and take some food from the kitchen. I know things are tight for you. You don't have to. I want to. She disappeared into another room and returned with her purse, pulling out several bills. Take it, please. Consider it a Christmas bonus. Marcus looked down at the money in her hand. $500. Enough to fix the heat in their apartment. Buy Emma the winter coat she needed. Put actual groceries in their fridge instead of just ramen and canned soup. His pride wanted to refuse, but his love for his daughter was stronger than his pride. Thank you, he said, taking the money. This means more than you know. Jennifer smiled. A real smile this time, not the plastic one she wore at board meetings. You're welcome. Now go home to that beautiful daughter of yours. Marcus drove home through the still falling snow, the $500 in his pocket, feeling like both a blessing and a burden. He'd helped his boss in her moment of need, and she'd helped him in his. It felt right, balanced. When he got home, Emma was indeed asleep on the couch, wrapped in every blanket they owned. He carried her to the bed they shared, tucking her in gently. She stirred, opening her eyes halfway. Daddy? I'm here, baby girl. Go back to sleep. Did you bring food from the party? His heart broke a little. I'll make you a big breakfast tomorrow, okay? I promise. She smiled and drifted back to sleep. Marcus sat beside her for a long time, watching her breathe, thinking about Jennifer's empty mansion and her son 2,000 miles away. Money couldn't buy what really mattered. He knew that now more than ever. The next morning, Marcus woke to his phone buzzing. A text from Jennifer. Thank you again for last night. Please take the day off with pay. Spend it with Emma. He smiled and showed Emma the message. How about we go get that winter coat? Today? And maybe see a movie? Her face lit up with joy that no amount of money could buy. Really, Daddy? We can do all that? Really? They spent the day together, something they rarely got to do. Bought the coat, saw an animated film about a family of bears, had hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. Emma chattered non-stop, her happiness infectious. For one perfect day, Marcus forgot about their cramped apartment, the bills piling up, the constant worry about making ends meet. But when Monday came, everything changed. Marcus arrived at the office to find police cars in the parking lot. His stomach dropped. Something was wrong. He ran inside, taking the stairs 2 at a time to the executive floor. Jennifer's office was cordoned off with yellow tape. Detectives were interviewing employees. Maria from accounting was crying in the break room. What happened? Marcus asked Tom, the security guard. Tom's face was grim. Miss Matthews, they found her this morning. Someone broke into her house last night. She didn't make it, Marcus. The world tilted. Marcus grabbed the wall to steady himself. What? No? That's not possible. I just saw her Friday night. I drove her home. She was fine. Tom's expression changed. You drove her home? You were at her house. Yes, after the party. She was too intoxicated to drive, so I... Marcus Washington. A detective appeared beside them, notepad in hand. I'm Detective Sarah Chen. I need to ask you some questions about Friday night. Marcus's mouth went dry. He knew that tone, that look. He'd experienced it 3 years ago when he'd been arrested for something he didn't do. They thought he was involved. Of course, he managed. Anything I can do to help. But as Detective Chen led him to a conference room, Marcus saw the looks from his co-workers. Suspicion, fear, judgment. They were already convicting him in their minds. The interview lasted 2 hours. Where had he gone in the house? Had he been alone with Jennifer? Had they argued? Did he know about her financial situation? Why had she given him money that night? She was being kind, Marcus insisted. She knew I was struggling. It was a Christmas bonus. $500 in cash, Detective Chen said flatly. No record of it in company books. Sounds more like payment for services rendered. What? No. She was drunk, emotional. I helped her get home safely. That's all. A wealthy woman, vulnerable and intoxicated, alone with her male assistant late at night. And 12 hours later, she's found deceased in her home. You see how this looks. Marcus felt the walls closing in. I didn't hurt her. I would never hurt her. She gave me a job when nobody else would. She helped me build a life for my daughter. Your daughter Emma, age 8, currently in 2nd grade at Lincoln Elementary. You're behind on rent, behind on utilities. $500 would help a lot with that, wouldn't it? Are you seriously suggesting I'm suggesting you had opportunity, motive, and means. And until we clear you, you're our primary person of interest. They let him go eventually, but only after taking his fingerprints and DNA. Marcus drove home in a daze, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. This couldn't be happening. Not again. Not when he'd finally gotten his life back on track. Emma was at school, thank God. He couldn't face her right now, couldn't explain why the police thought her daddy might have hurt someone. He sat in their tiny apartment, head in his hands, and cried for the first time in 3 years. The news hit the media by Tuesday morning. CEO found dead in luxury home. Assistant under investigation. Marcus's name wasn't mentioned, but everyone at the company knew. By noon, he'd received a call from HR informing him he was being placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. By evening, reporters were camped outside his apartment building, shouting questions whenever anyone entered or exited. Emma came home from school in tears. Daddy, the kids are saying mean things. They're saying you hurt someone. That's not true, right? Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her tight as she sobbed against his chest. It's not true, baby. I promise you. I would never hurt anyone. The police are just confused right now, but they'll figure out the truth. But would they? 3 years ago, the police had been convinced he was guilty, too. His ex-girlfriend, Stephanie, had robbed a convenience store with her new boyfriend, and when they'd gotten caught, she'd claimed Marcus had planned the whole thing. Never mind that he'd been at work with a dozen witnesses. Never mind that he'd broken up with her 2 months earlier. The system had steamrolled him anyway, and only an overworked public defender and a sympathetic judge had kept him out of prison. Now here he was again, the convenient suspect because he was poor, because he had a record, because he'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Washington, this is Robert Matthews, Jennifer's ex-husband. Marcus's breath caught. Mr. Matthews, I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't know what you've heard, but I didn't. I know you didn't, Robert interrupted. That's why I'm calling. I need to talk to you, in person, today, if possible. They met at a diner on the south side, far from the media circus surrounding Jennifer's death. Robert Matthews looked nothing like Marcus expected. No expensive suit, no power tie. Just a tired-looking man in jeans and a sweater, with grief etched into every line of his face. Thank you for coming, Robert said as Marcus slid into the booth across from him. I know this is risky for you, being seen with me. Why did you want to meet? Marcus asked carefully. Robert pulled out his phone and showed Marcus a series of text messages. They were from Jennifer, sent over the past 6 months. Messages about feeling followed, about strange phone calls at night, about money disappearing from accounts she didn't recognize, about threats. She was scared, Robert said quietly. She didn't tell the police because she thought it was connected to one of her business deals. Jennifer made enemies in the corporate world. She was tough, cutthroat when she needed to be. But these messages? Someone was targeting her, and it wasn't you. Why didn't she report this? Pride, fear, the same reasons she let our marriage fall apart. Robert's voice broke. She thought she could handle everything alone, that asking for help was weakness, and now she's gone. Marcus studied the messages. They painted a picture of a woman being systematically terrorized. Have you shown these to the police? Yes. Detective Chen seemed interested, but she's still focused on you. Said these could have been fabricated or that you could have been part of the harassment campaign. Robert leaned forward. But I know my ex-wife. She wouldn't have given you that money Friday night if she suspected you of anything. Jennifer was paranoid by the end. She didn't trust anyone. If she let you into her house, if she confided in you, it means she saw you as safe. So who did this? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Jennifer had a business partner who she forced out 6 months ago, Nathan Pierce. He swore he'd destroy her. There's also a former employee, Linda Chen, who sued the company for wrongful termination and lost. And Jennifer was about to close a deal that would have bankrupted one of her competitors. Robert ran his hands through his hair. The list is long, but the police are taking the easy route, focusing on you instead of actually investigating. Marcus felt something stir in his chest. Not quite hope, but maybe the beginning of it. What do you need from me? Tell me everything about Friday night. Every detail. Jennifer must have said something, noticed something. She was drunk, but she was also vulnerable. People tell the truth when their walls are down. So Marcus told him about the party, about Jennifer's state of mind, about the conversation in her living room, about her regrets regarding Dylan, her admission that she destroyed her marriage for a company that now felt meaningless. Robert listened intently, occasionally making notes on his phone. When Marcus finished, Robert was quiet for a long moment. She really said that? That I was right? That the company wasn't worth losing us? Yes. She was devastated about Dylan especially. Said she'd give anything to go back and make different choices. Robert's eyes filled with tears. I wish she'd told me that when she was alive. We could have worked something out. Co-parenting, regular visits. I wasn't trying to punish her by moving to California. I just needed space and Dylan needed stability. She knew that, Marcus said gently. She blamed herself, not you. They sat in silence. Two men, mourning the same woman for different reasons. Finally, Robert spoke again. I'm going to hire you a lawyer, a good one, and I'm going to fund a private investigation into Jennifer's situation, whatever it costs. Mr. Matthews, I can't accept. Yes, you can. Jennifer helped you when you needed it. Now I'm helping you in her memory. That's how this works. Robert's expression hardened. And I want to find whoever did this, not just for justice, but so Dylan knows the truth. He deserves to know. His mother didn't just give up on life, that someone took her from him. The lawyer Robert hired was named Susan Park, a former prosecutor who now specialized in defending the wrongfully accused. She was sharp, relentless, and expensive. She immediately filed motions demanding full access to the police investigation, pointing out the lack of physical evidence connecting Marcus to the crime scene beyond what he'd already admitted. They have no witnesses placing you at the house after you left. Friday night, Susan explained during their first meeting. No forensic evidence suggesting a struggle or confrontation. The toxicology report shows Jennifer had a blood alcohol level of 0.21 when she passed. The working theory is that someone broke in through a back window sometime between 3 and 5 a.m. Sunday morning. You were home with your daughter, correct? Yes. Emma can confirm I was there all night. An 8-year-old witness isn't ideal, but it's something. More importantly, the private investigator Robert hired has already found evidence that someone was casing Jennifer's neighborhood for weeks. Security footage from a neighbor's camera shows an unfamiliar vehicle parked down the street multiple times, always late at night. Marcus felt the weight on his chest lighten slightly. So they're looking at other suspects. They should be. Whether Detective Chen will remains to be seen. She seems fixated on the narrative that you saw an opportunity with a drunk, vulnerable woman and took it. That's insane. I'm not a... Marcus stopped himself, swallowing hard. I have a daughter. I would never. I know, Susan said firmly, and we're going to prove it. But proving innocence wasn't as simple as they'd hoped. The media had already tried and convicted Marcus in the court of public opinion. Someone leaked his criminal record, and suddenly every news outlet was running stories about the ex-convict assistant with a violent past. Never mind that he'd never been violent, that his only crime had been trusting the wrong woman. Emma faced bullying at school so severe that Marcus had to pull her out temporarily. She stayed with his mother in Indiana for a week while things settled down. His landlord received complaints from other tenants and asked Marcus to move out. The temp agency where he'd worked before Jennifer hired him refused to take him back. Everything was falling apart again. Then, 2 weeks after Jennifer's passing, the private investigator found something crucial. Security footage from a gas station 3 blocks from Jennifer's house. Timestamped 4:17 a.m. Sunday morning. A man in dark clothing, purchasing gasoline and cigarettes. The same man who'd been parked outside Jennifer's house multiple times in the weeks prior. The investigator enhanced the image and ran it through facial recognition software. Nathan Pierce, Jennifer's former business partner. Detective Chen still seemed skeptical when Susan presented the evidence, but she couldn't ignore it entirely. Nathan was brought in for questioning. At first, he denied everything, said he'd been home asleep, that his car matching the description was a coincidence. But when confronted with the timeline, with the security footage, with financial records showing he'd been desperate for money after Jennifer had bought him out of the company, Nathan's story started crumbling. "I just wanted to scare her," he finally admitted. "The harassment, the phone calls, the threats. I wanted her to know what it felt like to lose everything like I did. But I never went to her house that night, I swear." "Then why were you 3 blocks away at 4 a.m.? Nathan's lawyer advised him not to answer. But the damage was done. A search warrant executed on Nathan's property uncovered Jennifer's jewelry in his garage, along with detailed notes about her schedule, her security system, her habits. The case against Marcus evaporated overnight. Nathan Pierce was charged with breaking and entering, felony assault, and manslaughter. The theory was that he'd gone to the house to steal valuables, thinking Jennifer would be passed out drunk like she had been at previous company parties. But she'd woken up, confronted him, and in the struggle, she'd fallen down the stairs and struck her head on the marble floor. Marcus Washington was cleared of all suspicion. The media outlets that had destroyed his reputation barely covered his exoneration. A few small articles buried in the back pages, "Assistant cleared in CEO case." But the damage to his life, his daughter's life, couldn't be fixed with a retraction. Robert Matthews called him the day after Nathan's arrest. "I'm sorry," he said. "Sorry you went through this. Sorry the system failed you again. Jennifer would have been furious about how you were treated." "It's not your fault," Marcus said, though his voice was hollow. He was cleared, but he felt no relief, just exhaustion. "I want to do something for you. For Emma." Jennifer's will had a provision for employee bonuses. She'd planned to distribute them at Christmas. You were on that list. $50,000. Marcus's breath caught. "That's too much. It's what she wanted. And honestly, after what you've been through because of her death, it's the least I can do. There's also something else." Robert paused. "Jennifer had a life insurance policy. Half goes to Dylan for college. The other half she designated for setting up a scholarship fund for children of single parents trying to better their circumstances. I'd like you to help me administer that fund. Paid position, good salary. You'd be honoring her memory while helping families like yours." Marcus couldn't speak for a moment. The money would change his and Emma's life. The job would give him purpose, stability. But more than that, it would mean Jennifer's death hadn't been meaningless, that something good could come from this tragedy. "I accept," he said finally. "And thank you for believing in me, for fighting for the truth." "Jennifer saw something special in you," Robert said. "Now I see it too." 2 months later, Marcus stood in a small office downtown, watching through the window as Emma played in a nearby park. She was laughing again, the trauma of the past week slowly healing. They had a new apartment, 2 bedrooms, heat that worked, in a safe neighborhood. Emma was back in school, excelling. The scholarship fund was growing. They'd already awarded 3 grants to single parents pursuing education while raising their children. Every recipient reminded Marcus of himself 3 years ago. Desperate, hopeful, needing just one person to take a chance on them. Jennifer had been that person for him. Now he could be that person for others. He thought about that snowy night often, about driving Jennifer home, about sitting in her mansion listening to her regrets, about the $500 that had seemed like such a blessing and had nearly destroyed his life, about how quickly everything could change, how fragile security really was. But he also thought about Robert's kindness, about Susan Park fighting for him pro bono even before Robert hired her, because she believed in justice, about his mother taking Emma without hesitation, about his neighbor who'd testified that he'd been home all night, risking getting involved. People were complicated. The system was broken, but there was still good in the world. Still people willing to fight for what was right. 6 months after Jennifer's passing, Marcus received an unexpected letter. It was from Dylan Matthews, Jennifer's 13-year-old son. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, the words of a boy trying to sound older than he was. "Dear Mr. Washington," it began, "my dad told me about you, about how you helped my mom the night before she died, about how the police blamed you even though you didn't do anything wrong. I wanted to say thank you for being kind to her, and I wanted to ask you something. Would you tell me about that night? What she said? My dad told me some of it, but I want to hear it from you. I want to know if she mentioned me, if she was thinking about me. Please write back if you can. Dylan." Marcus read the letter 3 times, his heart breaking a little more with each pass. He thought about ignoring it, about letting the boy move on without reopening old wounds. But then he remembered Jennifer's face when she'd talked about Dylan, the raw pain in her voice, the desperate love of a mother separated from her child. He wrote back that same evening, "Dear Dylan, your mom talked about you constantly that night. She said you were the best thing she'd ever created. She regretted missing your soccer games, forgetting important moments. She said you were happier in California, and even though it broke her heart, she was glad you had what you needed. She loved you more than anything in this world. That's the truth. If you ever want to talk more, I'm here. Marcus." 2 weeks later, his phone rang. Robert Matthews. "Dylan wants to meet you," Robert said. "He's flying in next week for Jennifer's memorial service. I know this is a lot to ask, but would you be willing to talk to him, face to face?" Marcus thought about Emma, about how much it had meant to her when people showed up for her during their hardest times. How could he deny another child that same comfort? "Of course," he said, "whatever he needs." The memorial service was held at the OX company headquarters Jennifer had built. Hundreds of people attended. Business associates, employees, competitors who respected her even as they'd fought against her. Marcus stayed in the back, uncomfortable in the borrowed suit, watching as speaker after speaker praised Jennifer's vision, her drive, her success. But nobody talked about her as a mother. Nobody mentioned the woman who'd cried in her empty mansion, mourning the loss of her family. After the service, Robert found Marcus in the crowd. Beside him stood a tall, lanky teenager with his mother's eyes and his father's quiet demeanor. "Dylan, this is Marcus Washington." The boy extended his hand, formal and serious. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Washington. Please call me Marcus." They shook hands, and Marcus saw the grief the boy was trying so hard to hide. "Your mom would be proud of how strong you're being." Dylan's composure cracked slightly. "Can we talk? Somewhere private?" They found an empty conference room. Emma was with Marcus's mother for the day, which was probably for the best. This conversation needed to be just between them. "My dad said you were the last person to really talk to her," Dylan began, perched on the edge of a leather chair. Before it happened, what was she like?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "She was sad, lonely. She'd been drinking, so her walls were down. But she was also honest in a way I'd never seen before. She told me that building the company, making all that money, being successful, none of it mattered compared to losing you." Dylan's eyes filled with tears. "Then why didn't she just quit? Why didn't she move to California to be near me? She could have worked remotely or started a new company out there. She chose the business over me." Again, the pain in those words was visceral. Marcus understood it intimately. The confusion of being a child whose parents' choices didn't make sense, even when you knew they loved you. "I think," Marcus said, slowly, "your mom was stuck. She'd spent so many years defining herself by her success, by her company, that she didn't know who she'd be without it. Leaving would have meant admitting she'd made the wrong choice, and pride is a powerful thing. It keeps us trapped in situations we know are hurting us." "That's stupid," Dylan said, voice breaking. "I would have forgiven her, if she'd just shown up, if she'd tried." "I know, and she knew that too. That's what made it so hard for her. She knew you'd forgive her, but she couldn't forgive herself." Dylan wiped his eyes roughly. "The last time we talked, I told her I didn't want to visit for Christmas. I said I had plans with friends, but really I was just angry at her for not being there, for always choosing work. And now she's gone, and I can never take that back. Marcus moved to sit beside the boy. Listen to me carefully. What happened to your mom wasn't your fault. A bad person made a choice to hurt her. Your anger, your disappointment, those were valid feelings. You were protecting yourself from getting hurt again. Your mom understood that. How do you know? Because I'm a parent too. My daughter Emma, she's 8. And the worst thing in the world isn't when she's angry at me. It's knowing I've let her down. Your mom knew she'd let you down. She was trying to figure out how to fix it. She just ran out of time. They sat in silence for a while. Finally, Dylan spoke again. Quieter now. Dad told me what you went through. How the police blamed you. How people treated you. Why did you help her that night? You could have just called her a cab. Why did you risk so much? Marcus thought about that question. He'd asked himself the same thing 100 times during the investigation. Because she helped me when nobody else would. 3 years ago, I had nothing. A criminal record for something I didn't do. A daughter depending on me. No job. No prospects. Your mom looked past all that. She gave me a chance to rebuild my life. So when I saw her struggling, drunk and alone in a snowstorm, I couldn't just walk away. You don't abandon people who've shown you kindness, even when it costs you. Dylan nodded slowly. That's what my dad says too. That mom helped a lot of people, but she was too proud to let anyone help her back. He looked at Marcus with sudden intensity. Can I ask you something? Do you think she was happy? At the end? Even for a moment. Marcus remembered Jennifer's smile when he'd agreed to come inside. The way she'd looked at him when he'd said everyone struggles. The genuine gratitude in her voice when she'd given him that money. Yes, he said honestly. I think in those moments, talking to someone who wasn't judging her, who just listened, I think she felt relief. Maybe even peace. She knew someone saw her as more than just the CEO. She was just Jennifer, a person with regrets and hopes like everyone else. Dylan's shoulders shook as he started crying in earnest. Marcus put an arm around him, letting the boy grieve. They stayed like that for a long time. Two people connected by the memory of a complicated woman who'd tried her best and fallen short, but who'd still managed to touch lives in unexpected ways. When Dylan finally pulled away, he looked younger than 13, vulnerable and lost. Will you tell me more about her? Not the business stuff, the real things. What she said, how she acted. I feel like I'm forgetting who she really was. Anytime you want, Marcus promised. I'll tell you everything I remember. Over the following months, Dylan and Marcus developed an unlikely friendship. The boy would call every few weeks, usually late at night, California time, and they'd talk. Sometimes about Jennifer, sometimes about school, sometimes about nothing in particular. Marcus became a bridge between the mother Dylan had lost and the memories he was desperate to preserve. Robert noticed the change in his son. He's doing better, he told Marcus, during one of their check-ins about the scholarship fund. Still grieving, but he's not as angry. Whatever you're doing, it's helping. I'm just being honest with him, Marcus said, letting him know his mom was human, that she made mistakes, but loved him fiercely. That complicated feelings are okay. You're good at this, Robert observed. Connecting with people, understanding what they need. Have you ever thought about counseling or social work? Marcus laughed. I barely finished high school. College was never an option. It could be now. The scholarship fund could support your education. Think about it. You could help a lot of people with your experience and insight. The idea planted itself in Marcus's mind. He'd been so focused on survival for so long that he'd never considered what he might want to do beyond just getting by. But working with the scholarship recipients, talking to Dylan, helping Emma process her own trauma from the investigation, he was good at this. He understood struggle. He knew how to listen without judgment. Maybe he could make a career out of it. He enrolled in community college that fall, taking night classes while still managing the scholarship fund during the day. Emma was proud of him, telling everyone at school that her daddy was going to college. His mother cried when he told her, remembering all the potential he'd had before Stephanie and the false arrest had derailed his life. It was hard work, balancing school, work, and single parenthood. But it was good hard work, meaningful. He was building something real. The scholarship fund grew too. Robert had used his connections to get other companies involved, and soon they were awarding grants to dozens of single parents across the state. Each recipient had a story. A young mother escaping domestic violence, a father raising 3 kids after his wife's passing, a non-binary parent fighting for custody while trying to finish nursing school. Marcus met with each one, personally, heard their stories, offered not just money but mentorship, connections, hope. He remembered what it felt like to be drowning, to need someone to throw you a rope. Now he was that person for others. One evening, almost a year after Jennifer's passing, Marcus sat in the office going through applications for the newest round of scholarships. Emma was at his mother's for the weekend, giving him time to catch up on work and studying. He was alone when his phone rang. Nathan Pierce's name appeared on the screen. Marcus stared at it, his stomach churning. Nathan was awaiting trial, out on bail with an ankle monitor. They'd had no contact since the arrest. Why would he be calling now? Against his better judgment, Marcus answered. "Mr. Washington." Nathan's voice was rough, tired. "I know you have no reason to listen to me, but I need to say something. I need you to hear it. I'm listening. I destroyed your life. Temporarily, but still. The investigation, the media, losing your job. What your daughter went through. That's on me. My actions, my choices. And I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. Words never are. But I needed to say it." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Why are you calling me?" "Because I've been thinking a lot about choices. About how one bad decision can create a cascade of consequences you never intended. I didn't go to Jennifer's house planning to hurt her. I was just angry, desperate. I wanted to steal enough to get back on my feet. But she woke up. She confronted me. And in that moment of panic, I pushed her. Just pushed her away from me. But she fell and she hit her head, and suddenly I was responsible for someone's life ending. You could have called for help. I know. That was my second choice. And it was worse than the first. I ran. And then when they started investigating, I let them focus on you because it took the heat off me. That was my third choice. Each one worse than the last." Nathan's voice cracked. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see what I did. All of it. And I'm sorry." Marcus thought about hanging up, about refusing to give Nathan even this small absolution. But then he thought about Jennifer, about her regrets, about how she'd run out of time to make things right with Dylan, about how carrying guilt and anger had poisoned her life. "I appreciate you saying that," Marcus said carefully. "I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I hear you. And I hope you use your time in prison to become someone different. Someone better. That's more grace than I deserve. Thank you." After Nathan hung up, Marcus sat in the quiet office thinking about the interconnected web of choices that had brought them all to this point. Jennifer's choice to prioritize work over family. Nathan's choice to let desperation turn him into a criminal. The police's choice to take the easy route and blame Marcus. His own choice to help Jennifer that snowy night, despite the risks. Every choice had consequences. But some consequences led to growth, to change, to becoming better. And some led to destruction. He could choose which path he took from here. 2 years after Jennifer's passing, Marcus stood in front of a graduating class at the community college, cap and gown slightly too large, Emma cheering loudest from the audience. He'd completed his associate degree in social work with a 3.9 GPA, while working full-time and raising his daughter alone. It felt impossible, miraculous, earned. Robert and Dylan had flown in from California for the ceremony. Dylan was 15 now, taller, his voice deeper, but still carrying that serious demeanor that reminded Marcus so much of Jennifer. After the ceremony, they all went to dinner at a modest Italian restaurant. Marcus's choice, somewhere he could afford to contribute, even though Robert insisted on paying. "So what's next?" Robert asked as they waited for their food. "Bachelor's degree?" Marcus nodded. "Got accepted to State University. They're offering a partial scholarship. And with what I've saved from the fund work, I can swing it. It'll take 3 years going part-time, but I'll get there." "Mom would be proud," Dylan said quietly. It was the first time he'd mentioned Jennifer, without his eyes getting distant and sad. Progress. "She already was proud," Marcus corrected gently. "She told me that night that I was a good father, that the way Emma looked at me was real wealth. Your mom, understood what mattered. She just couldn't figure out how to choose it for herself. Emma, who'd been coloring on her placemat, looked up. Is Dylan's mom the angel lady? Marcus had explained Jennifer's passing to Emma in simple terms, that she was a kind woman who'd helped them, who'd gone to heaven too soon, and whose family they were honored to know. Yes, baby, that's her. Emma nodded solemnly, then turned to Dylan. My daddy says angels watch over people they loved, so your mom is probably watching you all the time. Dylan's eyes glistened, but he smiled. Thanks, Emma. I hope you're right. The dinner conversation drifted to lighter topics. Emma's upcoming dance recital, Dylan's plan to try out for varsity soccer, Robert's new job teaching business ethics at a university. He'd left the corporate world after Jennifer's passing, wanting something more meaningful. They'd all been changed by loss, reshaped by grief into slightly different versions of themselves. As they left the restaurant, Dylan pulled Marcus aside. Can we talk for a minute? They walked to a nearby park while the others waited by the car. The evening was warm, the kind of perfect spring night that felt full of possibility. I've been seeing a therapist, Dylan said as they sat on a bench. Dad thought it would help with everything, and it has mostly. But she asked me something last week that I can't stop thinking about. What was it? She asked if I'd forgiven my mom for choosing work over me, for not being there when I needed her, and I realized I don't know the answer. Dylan looked at Marcus with those eyes so much like Jennifer's. Have you forgiven her? For putting you in that situation, for the money that made you look guilty, for all of it. Marcus considered the question carefully. I think forgiveness isn't one moment. It's a process. At first I was angry. Why did she have to give me cash? Why couldn't she have called a car service instead of having me drive her? Why did I have to be convenient for the police to blame? But over time I realized she was just a person trying to do something kind in a moment of vulnerability. She couldn't have known what would happen, and holding on to anger about it only hurt me, not her memory. So you did forgive her? I forgave her for being human, for being flawed, for doing her best in a difficult situation even if her best wasn't perfect. Marcus turned to face Dylan directly. Your mom loved you more than anything, but she was also scared. Scared of failing, of being seen as weak, of admitting she'd made mistakes. That fear kept her trapped. Forgiving her means understanding she was fighting battles you couldn't see, even as she was failing you in ways you could. Dylan was quiet for a long moment. I'm angry at her for dying. Is that wrong? No, it's human. She was starting to figure things out, starting to maybe find her way back to you, and then someone took that chance away. You're allowed to be angry about that. But I'm also angry at myself for not calling her back those last few months, for telling her I didn't want to visit, for wasting time I didn't know was running out. Dylan's voice broke. What if she died thinking I hated her? She didn't, Marcus said firmly. I promise you, she didn't. She understood why you were protecting yourself, and she was trying to become someone worthy of your trust again. That's what that night was about. Her finally being honest about her failures so she could start fixing them. Dylan wiped his eyes. Thank you for being here, for answering my questions, for not making me feel crazy, for being confused about how I feel. Grief is confusing. Love is confusing. You're allowed to feel 100 different things at once. They walked back to the car, where Robert, Emma, and Marcus's mother were waiting. As they drove home, Emma fell asleep against Marcus's shoulder, and he thought about how far they'd come. From that tiny apartment with broken heat to a modest but comfortable 2-bedroom. From struggling to afford food to having savings in the bank. From being suspected of violence to being respected in his community. But more than the material changes, it was the internal ones that mattered. He'd learned he was stronger than he knew. That kindness was worth the risk, even when it cost him. That people were complicated, broken, beautiful, and trying their best. That forgiveness of others and yourself was the only way forward. The wide trial for Nathan Pierce came a few months later. Marcus was called to testify about the night he'd driven Jennifer home, about her state of mind, about the $500 that had seemed so suspicious. He told the truth plainly, without embellishment. He wasn't there to punish Nathan or save him, just to tell what happened. Nathan was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and burglary. 15 years, eligible for parole in 10. As they led him away in handcuffs, Nathan looked at Marcus one last time and mouthed, "Thank you." Marcus didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. After the trial, the media wanted to interview Marcus, the wrongly accused man who'd been vindicated, the feel-good story of survival and redemption. He declined them all except one, a local news segment that wanted to feature the scholarship fund and the families it had helped. The segment aired on a Tuesday evening. Marcus watched it with Emma, who was thrilled to see her daddy on TV. They'd interviewed 3 scholarship recipients: the single mom who'd finished nursing school, the father who'd started his own business, the parent who'd become a teacher. All of them credited the fund with changing their lives, giving them hope when they'd had none. At the end, the interviewer had asked Marcus what he'd learned from everything he'd been through. "I learned that we're all one bad moment away from losing everything," he'd said. "One false accusation, one illness, one unexpected tragedy. But I also learned that we're all one act of kindness away from being saved. Jennifer Matthews saved me with a job when I needed it. Robert Matthews saved me with a lawyer when I was accused. My mother saved me by taking Emma when things got dangerous. We save each other. That's how we survive." The segment ended with information about how to apply for scholarships or donate to the fund. Within a week, they'd received over $100,000 in donations and more than 500 applications. Marcus hired 2 assistants to help process them all. One was a former recipient of the scholarship, now working while finishing her degree. The other was a retired social worker who volunteered his time because he believed in the mission. The fund became Marcus's life work, even as he continued his education. By the time Emma turned 11, Marcus had completed his bachelor's degree and was starting a master's program in counseling. He'd been offered positions at several social service agencies, but he stayed with the fund. It felt right. It felt like honoring Jennifer's complicated legacy by helping people in ways she'd wished she'd helped herself. Dylan visited every few months, staying with Marcus and Emma during school breaks. He'd decided to attend a university in Chicago after graduation, wanting to be closer to his mother's memory and the people who'd known her best. Robert supported the decision, even though it meant being apart. "He needs this," Robert told Marcus during one visit. "He needs to understand his mom as a whole person, not just the one who disappointed him. You're helping him do that." On the 3rd anniversary of Jennifer's passing, they held a memorial event at the company headquarters. The scholarship fund had now helped over 300 families. Some recipients had gone on to help others, starting their own nonprofits, mentoring struggling parents, paying forward the kindness they'd received. Marcus spoke briefly at the event, with Emma standing proudly beside him. "Jennifer Matthews was complex," he began. "She was brilliant and driven, but also lonely and lost. She built an empire but struggled to build lasting relationships. She gave me a chance when nobody else would, but she couldn't give herself permission to fail. Her death was a tragedy, senseless, preventable, devastating. But from that tragedy came something meaningful. This fund, these families, these changed lives. Jennifer wanted success. She got it in, business, but it cost her too much personally. Now we're creating a different kind of success, one measured in parents who don't have to choose between their children and their education, in kids who see their mom or dad graduate, in families that stay together because they received help at the right moment." He paused, looking out at the crowd. Robert and Dylan in the front row, Emma holding his hand, his mother dabbing her eyes. The scholarship recipients scattered throughout the audience, each one a testament to second chances. "Jennifer told me that night that the only real wealth is in relationships, in being present for the people you love. She learned that lesson too late for herself. But through this fund, through the lives we're changing, her lesson lives on. We're helping people choose family over fear, connection over ambition, presence over perfection. That's Jennifer's real legacy. Not the company she built, but the people she helped, even after she was gone." The applause was thunderous. Emma hugged him tight, whispering, "That was perfect, Daddy." After the event, as people mingled and shared stories, a woman approached Marcus. She was in her 30s, professionally dressed, with kind eyes. "Mr. Washington, I'm Linda Chen. I sued Jennifer's company 3 years ago for wrongful termination. Marcus recognized the name from Robert's investigation. She'd been on the list of people who might have wanted to hurt Jennifer. "I know who you are," he said, carefully. "I wanted you to know I had nothing to do with what happened to her. The police questioned me extensively and I was cleared, but I've carried guilt anyway." Linda's voice was soft. "I was so angry at her for firing me. I said terrible things in depositions, in court, and then she was gone, and I realized how much energy I'd wasted on hatred, how it had consumed me. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I applied for one of your scholarships. Not for me, for my daughter. She's being raised by my mother while I try to rebuild my career. And when I saw that Jennifer's legacy had become this fund, this beautiful thing helping families like mine, I realized she'd changed even after her passing. The woman who fired me without a second thought had somehow become part of a system that helped me when I needed it most. That's extraordinary." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. "Did you receive a scholarship?" "We did. Last year. My daughter starts community college this fall, and my mother can finally retire. Because of this fund. Because of you. Because of Jennifer." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to say thank you, and I'm sorry for the hatred I carried, for not seeing her complexity until it was too late." After Linda walked away, Marcus stood quietly, processing the interaction. How many lives had Jennifer touched, both positively and negatively? How many people carried complicated feelings about her? The woman who'd given him a chance had also destroyed Linda's career. Both things were true. Both mattered. People were messy, contradictory, capable of harm and healing simultaneously. Jennifer had been no exception. That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus sat at his desk looking at a photograph from that memorial event. He was in the center, Emma beside him, surrounded by dozens of scholarship recipients and their families. Behind them, a banner read, "The Jennifer Matthews Second Chance Fund, because everyone deserves an opportunity." His phone buzzed. A text from Dylan. "Thank you for today, for honoring Mom in a way that showed all of her, the good and the complicated. I think I'm finally learning to hold both at the same time, to love her and be disappointed by her, to grieve her and be grateful for what came after. You taught me that." Marcos typed back, "You taught me too. That forgiveness is possible even when it seems impossible. That love survives death. That we can build something beautiful from broken pieces." He looked at the photograph again, at all those faces representing second chances, fresh starts, hope reclaimed. This was Jennifer's true legacy. Not the company that would eventually be sold and forgotten. Not the wealth that had failed to buy happiness. But this, the ripple effect of one act of kindness on a snowy night, spreading outward through time, touching lives she'd never meet, changing trajectories she'd never witness. Marcus had been drowning 3 years ago, and Jennifer had thrown him a rope without knowing it would cost her everything. Now he spent his days throwing ropes to others, watching them pull themselves to safety, knowing that kindness was the only currency that truly mattered. Emma stirred in her bedroom, calling out softly, "Daddy? I'm here, baby girl," he called back. "I'm always here." And he was, present, attentive, grateful for every moment. He'd learned that lesson from Jennifer's mistakes, had let her regrets shape his priorities. His daughter would never wonder if she mattered more than his work. She would always know she was his greatest success. The snow had stopped falling years ago, but Marcus still remembered that night with crystal clarity. The cold, the fear, the unexpected kindness, the beginning of everything that came after. One choice to help someone in need had nearly destroyed him, but it had also led him here, to this life, to this purpose, to this peace. Some nights were meant to change you. Some people were meant to reshape your trajectory. Jennifer Matthews had been both, the night and the person, the crisis and the catalyst, the tragedy and the transformation. Marcus turned off his desk lamp and went to check on Emma one more time. She was sleeping peacefully, her face soft and untroubled. Tomorrow he'd take her to soccer practice. This weekend they'd visit his mother. Next month they'd meet Dylan when he came to tour universities. The scholarship applications would keep coming, the fund would keep growing, the lives they touched would keep multiplying. One act of kindness on a winter night had created all of this, had saved Marcus, educated Emma, memorialized Jennifer, healed Dylan, connected Robert, helped hundreds of families. The ripples were still spreading, still reaching new shores, still changing the world in small but meaningful ways. Marcus closed Emma's door softly and stood in the hallway of their modest apartment. It wasn't a mansion on the lake. It wasn't expensive or impressive, but it was full of love, presence, intention. It was everything Jennifer had wanted and never quite achieved. And in that moment, Marcus understood that he'd been given a gift that terrible snowy night. Not the $500 that had nearly ruined him, but the lesson that had saved him, that we show up for each other in moments of need, regardless of cost, because that's what makes us human. That's what gives life meaning. That's what survives long after we're gone. Jennifer. Matthews had taught him that. And now, every single day, he taught it to others.